Let me start with a story. It's a story that's true for every single person listening to this, and it begins like this. Once upon a time, you were a genius. But if that's true, and I believe it is, then you gotta ask the big question, right? What happened? If we all started out with this incredible innate potential, where did it all go? Is it possible we've actually been trained out of our own genius? Well, the answer comes from this really incredible study on something called divergent thinking. That's just a fancy way of saying the ability to see lots of different solutions to a single problem. What they found was that at 5 years old, a whopping 98% of us test at the genius level for this. 98%. Okay, hold on to that number, 98%, because this is where the story takes a shocking turn. By the time those same kids grew up and became adults, the number of them testing at that genius level had dropped to just 2%. So what on earth happened in between? This whole incredible story, this journey of lost potential, it all starts with this one fascinating test. And get this, it wasn't even designed for kids in the first place. It was originally created for rocket scientists at NASA. I mean, think about it. NASA needed to find the absolute most creative, innovative engineers on the planet. The kind of people who could solve impossible problems when lives were on the learn. So they made this test to spot them. The challenge was simple. Here's an everyday object. Now tell us every single possible use you can think of for it. And then the guy who created the test, a researcher named George Land, he has this light bulb moment. He thinks, I wonder what would happen if I gave this same NASA-level test to a bunch of little kids. So he did. He gave it to 1,600 5-year-olds, and what he found was about to completely change how we think about human potential. So this is where we get into the tough part of the story. This is the Great Decline. We're going to look at exactly what happened to that 98% and how the pressures of life, of school, of just trying to fit in slowly start to chip away at that magic we all started with. You see, George Land didn't just test those kids once. No, this was a longitudinal study. He followed them for years. And the results? Man, they're a gut punch. When he tested them again at age 10, only 30% still scored at the genius level. By age 15, it was down to just 10%. And as we already saw, by the time they were adults, a mere 2%. We are, it seems, systematically educated out of our genius. You know, this isn't some obscure idea. You might have even heard about this from Sir Ken Robinson in his TED Talk. Do schools kill creativity? It's literally the most watched one of all time. His whole point was that our school systems are built for an industrial age. They reward conformity, finding that one right answer, and in the process, they accidentally stamp out the very creative thinking we need. And look, this isn't just some personal bummer, about losing your creative spark. This has created a massive, and I mean massive, crisis in the professional world. Because when you train the genius out of millions and millions of people, you end up with a workforce that's just totally disengaged from what they're doing. The numbers are just wild. We're talking 70% of employees are basically just showing up and going through the motions. 82% of managers have no clue how to actually develop their people. Companies are burning through hundreds of billions of dollars on training that completely misses the mark. And maybe the craziest stat of all, a full 20% of the workforce is so checked out, companies would literally be better off paying them to stay home. That is the real-world cost of lost genius. Okay, that was a lot of doom and gloom. But, and this is a big but, the story doesn't end there. There is a way back. Thanks to a huge revolutionary shift in psychology, we actually have a roadmap to find what we've lost. And it all starts by stop focusing on what's wrong with us and start focusing on what's uniquely right. It really all started with this one simple but totally profound question from a guy named Donald O. Clifton. For decades, psychology was obsessed with fixing weaknesses, but Clifton flipped that whole idea on its head. After 50 years of research, he proved that the most successful, most fulfilled people on the planet don't waste time fixing their flaws. They double down on their natural strengths. And there's real science to back this up. When you're operating in that genius zone, that flow state, your brain literally rewards you. It floods your system with this incredible cocktail of chemicals: dopamine for motivation, endorphins for focus, serotonin for confidence, and oxytocin for connection. It's like a built-in feedback loop for being awesome. All right, so the science makes perfect sense. Play to your strengths. Great. But how? How do you actually do that in real life? Well, for that, you need a new kind of operating system, a simple, practical map to your own personal genius. I bet a bunch of you have done this before, right? You take some personality test, you get this huge, complicated 30-page report, you read it, you go, Huh, that's kind of neat. And then it gets shoved in a drawer and you never look at it again. Because insight without action is, well, it's totally useless. The real trick is turning that data into a daily habit. So, a much better way to go about it is to boil everything down to 3 super simple but powerful questions. Number 1, what do I actually look like when I'm at my absolute best? 2, how do I screw things up for myself? What are my personal kryptonites and my blind spots? And 3, how can I use all this knowledge to just work better with other people? And there are tools out there designed to do exactly this. One of them is called Genius Spark, and it's pretty cool. It basically acts like a Rosetta Stone. It takes all that complicated assessment data and translates it into something you can actually use. A short, simple Genius paragraph that describes you at your best, and a kryptonite paragraph that calls out your blind spots. It's like finally getting the user manual for yourself.
Okay, so you've got your map, you know what makes you tick. But that's still just knowledge. The final piece of the puzzle, and honestly the most important part, is learning how to use that map every single day. This is about turning that insight into an automatic habit that literally rewires your brain for the better.
And the method for this is so simple, it's almost laughable. It's called the bookends practice. In the morning, you just take 30 seconds to read your Genius paragraph and set an intention for the day. Then in the evening, you take about a minute to think back on your day's highlights and connect those wins back to your core strengths. That's it. See how that works? You're bookending your day with purpose. The morning sets your brain's internal GPS on a target. The evening reflection gives it the proof it needs to lock in those new neural pathways. It's this simple little loop that trains your brain to get better and better at being you. And please, hear me on this. This is not about some massive, heroic, overnight transformation. It's all about the power of what they call marginal gains. The British cycling team went from being totally mediocre to dominating the sport just by improving 100 little things by 1%. Your potential works the exact same way. Small, consistent actions create unbelievable results over time. So let's bring it all home with this one last thought. That 5-year-old genius you used to be, they're still in there. They never actually left. They just got buried under years of rules and expectations and self-doubt. But now we have the science and we have the tools to find them again. So the only real question left is, are you ready to start digging?